Mims Henstorf, and I'm here today to interview Bob Wolford. Bob, you want to tell us something about what you remember from the 30s, about your life as a young boy during that time?
Well, I went to school in Shenandoah, Iowa, so the public schools. There was a Catholic school here at that time when I started, but I always attended the public school, and not having been Catholic. And we had a good staff, good teachers, good. I think some of them continued on and were Shenandoah teachers for a long time, and were very good ones.
Was there just one school in town at that time, or
There were four elementary schools. One, I guess you now call a middle school or junior high then, and the one high school at not the current location, but the previous one, immediately previous one. I guess it had been at one time the site of a college here, but that was before my time.
And when you were at school, what kind of games did you participate in? Do you remember?
Well, on the playground we had basketball hoops, and we, I don't recall in elementary that we had phys ed as such, but we just played a little football or played softball or basketball on the playground.
After you were going to school, did you have organized sports as you got into the
Oh,
upper
yes.
grades and,
Oh, yes.
and play other teams? And
Oh yes, yes, yeah. In high school we did. I don't recall that we may have had some in junior high. I played some football for a couple years, but not throughout my Shenandoah school career.
Okay, can you tell us about your family life, your parents, what did they do, and maybe kind of just think of an ordinary day?
Well, my father was employed by the Arome Seed Company. He was officially secretary of the company, the corporation, and ran the accounting department throughout the 30s and to his retirement, quite a few years later. I think he was on the city council for one term or two at the most. At one time, he was an active in the American Legion, in the church. My mother was not employed. I think she had been a teacher out in western Nebraska before they were married, but she didn't teach here. She was on the school board for quite a number of years, and I think it was rather unusual in those days for a woman to be on the school board. In fact, she was president of the school board for a few years. I think she may have given my sister her diploma when she graduated. But in any event, and then she was active in a number of clubs in the church and community.
Mm-hmm. Did you go home for lunch from your school?
Yes, yes.
And what kind of lunch did she have prepared for you then?
That kind of leaves me. I don't recall.
Okay.
Let's say probably a sandwich and a glass of milk.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's fine. What can you remember about the clothes you wear during those times? As far as when you went to school, what did you wear?
Well, I don't remember very well. Probably some corduroy pants or something, and some kind of a shirt. nothing elaborate.
And then did you have a separate outfit for Sundays?
Oh, yes, yes, and you know, major occasions.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you remember, you were young at the time, but can you remember any changes in your lifestyle during when you were probably just starting school to when you got into the junior high age, which would be about the time during the Depression, with your dad's job or anything like that, how the Depression affected you maybe at home or things you might have heard?
I don't really recall that it changed much. I mean, from pre-kindergarten to through the elementary years, they were tough times for everybody. But my father did not lose his job, and we had a comfortable life. Not big time, but
Did you have some chores that you had to do as a child?
oh, I think I had to carry out garbage, and as I got a little older, I got old enough where I could mow the lawn, do things like that.
And what can you remember about, we always hear about the summer and the winter of 1936. Do you have any memories that you can, as a child, the snow had to be wonderful as a child.
Yes, well, we had some big snows back those days, but nothing particular that I could report, I think, that I mean, I just don't remember.
Where'd you go sledding?
Well, on Summit, the city roped off between Church and Elm, and that was available whenever we had good sledding to anyone who wanted to use it, I think. So that was where we did the sledding.
Okay. And what about, do you remember any of the dust that came through from what we consider the dust storms of Oklahoma that came up through this area?
No, I don't. I really have no recollection of them. I think we didn't get it nearly as bad as Oklahoma, but we probably got some residue or something from those storms.
What about, how did you celebrate Christmas and any holidays during those times as a child? What kind of Christmas did you have?
Well, we had a tree, and we had opening of presents in the morning, and we had we got together with relatives for a Christmas dinner. Then I guess that's when the Kiwanis had their annual dance at the what we call the old armory, and that was a big event as I was growing up.
And children
Didn't
went
mean
to
too
that
much.
as well.
Didn't well when I was in high school. That was, I guess, beyond your time scope.
That's right.
But and I don't know that my parents went to the dance. I don't recall they did, but anyway, that was a major event of the occasion.
Did you have a live tree then that you went out and, as a family, went out to get, or?
No, I think we bought them, probably at the Earl May Seed Company.
Okay.
I had to put in a plug.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then what about birthdays? How did you celebrate birthdays?
Oh, we had a party. I mean, a birthday party as children were growing up. And of course, mine was particularly a good one because of all the other things, the fireworks, you know. Now I can watch Washington, D.C.'s fireworks and everything on television. Couldn't then, but parades and... But that was rather unique to me.
Right.
Not everyone got that.
Right. 4th of July kind of brought forth extras.
Yes.
So did you have children come to the house for your
Oh,
party
yes.
then? And,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then as you were growing up, did you play just in your neighborhood with neighborhood kids, or what kind of things did you do on an ordinary Saturday or afternoon to...
Well, probably through elementary school I was within a few blocks, most of the time, usually. You know, when I got a little older, I ventured out a little further than that.
And did your folks have a car during this time?
Yes.
Okay, and where would you drive then? When you went, lots of times on Sunday afternoons, people would go on rides.
Mm-hmm.
And did you go to visit relatives, or what kind of events did you use the car for?
Well, on a family drive, it was probably in the country, just not, we didn't go very far. As I got a little older, and maybe the times were a little more prosperous, we ventured a little further. Although, I remember going to Kansas City once as a smaller child, to go to the zoo, and I believe it's Swope Park. And I was appalled at the poverty in Kansas City. I mean, I knew that they were hard times here in Shenandoah, but I didn't see the effects of it to the extent I did in Kansas City that day. And I'd been to Omaha a time, not very often, but and I didn't see it as bad there. But Kansas City, there were people on the street, what we maybe call homeless people today. It was, and then, well, that was in regard to where we took rides or where I ventured. Along the same lines, but right here in Shenandoah, we lived on the corner of West Thomas and Pear Street. Subsequently moved 2 doors to the west, but and the Wabash station was only several blocks away. But I remember what we called hobos then, coming and wanting a meal, and my mother provided it for them.
They would come to your door?
Yes, usually the back door, or sometimes more than the front. But one time, one of them left a note. Was a Nazi-inspired, whatever it was, and I think my father sent it to the FBI. I don't know if anything ever happened from it, but that was unusual, most unusual.
Yeah, so you did see them boarding the train or getting off the train, and
I didn't see them getting on or off the train. No.
Okay, you just knew that they'd probably come in on the train and.
Now, I think the Wabash probably had more than because the Burlington was just a branch out of Red Oak to Hamburg, I think, and the Wabash, I believe, came from St. Louis, or between St. Louis and Kansas City, with this part of it going, I think it split in Moberly, and part of it came to Omaha and part went to Kansas City. So we got more traffic from the hobos or the homeless.
What did Main Street look like in those days? As a kid, just going down to Main Street. If you had a little money in your pocket, could you stop and buy some candy or something?
Oh, sure.
Along the way?
Oh, sure. The dime stores had candy. There was Candyland. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. You didn't grow up here, ma'am, so. But Candyland was quite a hangout for the younger set. uh, with Cokes and, candy, what have you. Probably sandwiches.
And it was on Main Street?
It was on Main Street, oh yes, oh yes. Well, and then there was another one similar, competitor. Can't remember the name of it, but, and, there were stores, and I think Shenandoah really was a fairly prosperous retail center for a number of reasons in those years, compared to similar towns. And Shenandoah was well known, I think, throughout the Midwest because of the radio stations that you hear in the museum
Right.
document someday.
With your dad working there, then did you probably had a little more access or a little more information about the radio station and being down there with the seed nursery and all of that involved. So what kind of activities went on down there during that time?
Well, of course, there was the May Seed Company in KMA, and there was Henry Field Seed Company in KFNF, and they were really rather similar in a number of ways. And the radio is what really put Shenandoah on the map, I think. The two stations, both of them, were important. On the Main Street, going back to the Main Street question, well, we had J.C. Penney and Montgomery Ward, and locally owned a couple of ladies ready to wear and men's clothing stores, McCloy's and Goldberg's clothing stores, ladies apparel, and the one across the street. Anyway, and I think, well, then in the Henry Field Seed Company, on their first floor, had a gamble store, and Howard Johnson's father had a clothing store down at the Henry Field Seed Company, before he had one on Main Street. Later he got the Main Street location. KMA, I think they had a grocery store at one time. They had a men's clothing store. Or no, I don't know that they had a men's. They had a women's, ladies' clothing store. They sold paint, I think tires and batteries, car batteries. Of course, Gamble's, their competitor down at Fields, had probably some of that same merchandise. So it was, I would say, we didn't have a Walmart then, but nobody did. But we had, for nationals, we had Montgomery Ward and Penny's. I think for a town the size we had a pretty good retail.
You know, and we hear about all the farmers coming in on Saturday night.
Oh, yes.
So
Oh, yeah.
were the town people down there too, and can you describe a Saturday night to us?
Well, my parents didn't go down, but maybe I wander down there sometimes. Wander up and down the street and see people just sitting in their cars, watching who was going by, seeing their friends. Didn't cost much, and just kind of a meeting place.
Was the movie theater there at that time?
Oh, yes. Well, let me think now. Well, there was one in the KMA auditorium, and there was, the Holdridges had one and then two, I think. So yes, I think they Holdridges may have only had one early on in the 30s, but I think they later opened it the second one. And then there was a drive-in west of town.
Okay.
So, oh, sure. I, used to go to a Western on Saturday mornings, or Saturday afternoons, I guess it was. Yeah.
just walk down by yourself and get a couple kids to go to watch?
Well, I think I did. I may have been in junior high. I don't know. I mean, I didn't do it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anything else that you can remember about those days and what kind of things you did, either as a family or as a young boy growing up?
Not a lot. We didn't. Nobody went out to dinner a lot. I think we didn't go out much. There was a place called Katie Davies, a farmer, about 4 miles, 5 miles maybe, on Highway 2 toward Clement East, and had great dinners. There was Lauber's restaurant on Sheridan Avenue, about where Tom Broderson's grocery or haircutting place is. And there were a few taverns around. I didn't frequent those, but at that age, at any rate, mostly pool halls. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You did take some notes. Is there anything
Well-
in there that you want to?
Oh, well, I guess I might mention the entertainers on the radio stations. They kind of put us on the map. Live entertainment was unique, pretty unique, and people could come in and see them, I guess, perform. And of course, the seed companies had their rodeos, like a weekend in the fall, with free pancakes, and I think sometimes they had some carnival type rides, and it was quite an event. I mean, brought a lot of people to town. And they could, of course, see the entertainers then. And the other thing is the homemakers, the ladies who I didn't listen to much, but they had big audiences, and they sold merchandise, mail order. We had in Shenandoah, and I'm bragging, but I think we had the top level post office, but there was a huge amount of merchandise that was mailed out from nursery stock. I think we had hatcheries that sent. I mean, we didn't have a United Postal Service or similars. The post office did most all of it. They sold chicken. I mean, they sent chickens. Shipped them out, and a lot of nursery stock. So we had a disproportionately large volume for the size town we were, through the post office. So, the Blackwood brothers were big. Who was it we had down? There was, the Depot Deli brought, who was it? Well, I'll think of. Oh, yeah, right. But from way back, maybe not back to the 30s, but way back, and there were some pretty capable musicians in those days that lived in Shenandoah and worked there. And I think that put us on the map, too, along with the homemakers.
Right.
Bob, could I ask you a question? I've always heard how wonderful Could you describe it? I remember reading there were stars on the ceiling, and do you remember much about it? I think that would be interesting to have on tape.
Well, there were, simulated stars. If you looked at the ceiling, which was it was really a two-story high ceiling. It was a pretty high ceiling because they had a balcony, and the and it was a pretty good sized auditorium and stage that they used for. Well, they brought a screen down and had movies there, but they also had country school, which was a big Saturday, I think, event. I don't think it was on every day, but they had all their entertainers and jokes and comedians and what have you. I don't know, the whole architecture of that, what was then the north end of the Mayseed Company block, they've since torn that end down, but had like a Near East architecture. I always did think it was kind of weird, but that's the way it was. It was unique, certainly.
Painted murals, was that part of it, or?
Well, I don't know that there were really murals, but there were, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
It was unique.
And could you go in for free, or did you pay?
Well, you paid for the movies, but I don't think you didn't pay for like country school or just wandering in to see no.
Okay.
So that was a big benefit then for the town, wasn't it, to have the live entertainment that, especially during those days when times were hard, to kind of relieve yourself from the drudgery of what might be going on in your everyday life, to see these entertainers and for free.
It was fun, although I don't know that the locals were steady, viewers. But, of the movies they were, but not the
Did
live.
some of the locals get to participate then in the country school, or was that totally professional entertainers?
Well, they worked for KMA, but yeah, but they were locals too, like Toby Stewart, his wife, who had also the theater there, the Mayfair Theater. Greta Bellamy, whose husband was a dentist here in town, and she was a very accomplished organist, pianist, and others.
I'm going to put you on the spot, and you can certainly decline to answer, but if your father was the CFO, the financial officer for Mays?
Well,
I don't want to...
I'm not sure that he was the CFO, but he was involved with that end of the business, yes.
So that would have been a critical part during the 30s. And I know you were young, but when you talked to him in later years, did he ever say how did they change their mix of merchandise to, obviously a lot of the merchandise they had were things that people needed to sustain life, so I can see why that would be good, but still people didn't have money. So how did he ever say how they dealt with the Depression?
No, not really. We didn't discuss it.
Yeah.
I really don't know. They did develop their own hybrid corn as years went by, known as Maygold hybrid. And they got away from the general merchandise type, the paint and the batteries and the groceries and so forth. Both companies did. But I don't know that that was necessary. I don't know why. What drove that? I don't know that that was related to the Depression. It could have been.
I have one more question.
All right.
There was a museum in Shenandoah,
Yes.
and it was like wildlife and animals, and I forgot.
Taxidermy, I can't remember
Yeah,
the name
I'm
of it.
sorry, I can't remember the name of it either, but it was evidently quite a array of animals. Do you remember that at all?
No.
And I don't remember where it was even located.
Well, you aren't old enough to
No.
remember it.
No.
It was the block behind where the post office is now, so,
Behind it. Oh my gosh.
north of where the post office is.
Okay, on the corner?
Yeah. And
Okay.
it starts with a D, and I can't remember the
Okay.
name of it.
And it was just one gentleman that
Yeah.
collected all these
Yeah.
things.
I don't think I was ever in it, but I had a paper route for the Evening Sentinel down, well, Broad Street to Sycamore and Sheridan to Railroad Avenue or Ferguson Road, really. So I was, yeah, I know where you mean.
Okay.
I know the house
Uh-huh.
that's still there.
Well, it was written up in the WPA guide.
Oh, really?
For Iowa in 1933.
Really?
Yes, and so we occasionally remember to ask kids that were in Shenandoah, and your response is the one we've gotten. I
Yeah.
never went there,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
so I thought that was interesting. Thank you.
Okay. So, we're through now.
Anything else? Do you have anything else?
No, I don't believe so. It's
Okay.
been very pleasant.
Okay.
and,
Good. Good.
hope you're not disappointed.
No, we learned several new things.